tell me a little bit about motivational speaking and like your process. You get booked, you have to go speak to 5,000 people. Like what's the process for you?
Yeah, so for me, I have a lot of friends all over the world, and because I've built so many relationships and a lot of people who have came through my business, for example, my business isn't for everybody. I always tell people trading, investing, all these things and leadership is not for everybody. So a lot of what happens is a lot of these other people's, I'm a big relationship guy. So I keep my relationships really solid, the people that obviously are good to me and everything. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these people end up building other businesses. And then what ends up happening is because of the great relationship that we have and because of the things that I teach and what I was able to teach them, they invite me to like, hey, can you come speak to my sales team? Now They're doing life insurance, they're doing health, they're doing solar, they're doing real estate. I get invited all around the world to just teach people on the power of the mindset. And I also get invited for sales because I've been really good at sales and just building teams because, my whole life I've built teams. Even before business, my goal in baseball was to build a strong team so we could go win a championship.
Right.
So my whole life I've been built around that. So nowadays people just invite me all around the world. You can book me on Instagram, different people from all around the world just pick me and random people. Like the other day I got a phone call from, I don't know if you know YouTube. On YouTube there's this page called Motiversity.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah.
It's a really popular page for like motivational videos and stuff. And they gave me a call and they were like, yo, we see what you're doing. We love the content that you post. We're looking, he was looking to recruit other speakers and now he wants me to do a gig with him. And,
awesome.
So I get booked from all over the places. And sometimes I get invited to places around the world because my business is international. I get a lot of things, out in Europe as well. So I've been all over Europe, Amsterdam, Spain, Netherlands, Belgium, France, all those places I've doing. And because I speak Spanish as well, it helps me because I go to places like Portugal, Spain, and I'm able to do it in English and Spanish. So it just kind of like worked out for me because especially in those countries, there's not a lot of motivational speakers out there. Over here, we have a lot of them. Over there, there's not a lot of them. So, they look at us as like, we are their, Jim Rohn or those people. Yeah. We are those people for them over there. Like we're those big names. So for me, they look at me as one of those individuals that is able to go out there and speak for them. So and then I'm also young. I can relate with them a lot. Yeah. I haven't really got there yet. So like I'm in the process of becoming that best version of me. So people just find me and they book me everywhere, bro. And it's been awesome.
And then as far as your like processes for like before you speak, do you have any kind of like process that you use before you speak?
Yeah.
Or you just like do your thing?
No, it depends. Like if, for example, let's say you wanted me to come speak to the employees here at No Days Off or, at Legacy, I would actually like, what do you feel like they need or what are the areas that you feel like they're lacking? And so I go based off of what the person needs and what I feel like I can help them out. And I'll add my extra sauce and my extra 2 cents in there. But for the most part, I go based off of what they feel like, their weaknesses are or where they feel like, they've been lacking at. And then I develop a whole training around that. So I'll sit down and I'll create a training that can cover all specific points while also adding what's important to me in there as well and giving like certain references and also adding stories because they say facts tell, but the stories sell.
Yeah,
so I love telling stories in between. So like I'll give you a fact, but I'm also going to tell you the story, how I related to it so I can also relate with them as well. So that's key for me as well.
Yeah, being relatable is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. So I love the stories. Stories are big.
When you're giving your talks, your motivational speeches, like and you're in it, like, like literally like say 5 minutes in and everybody's staring at you. You got any tips for those moments? Because I know a lot of people struggle with public speaking, like I've heard it all the time. And especially like when you're, a lot of our coaches, they have to speak in front of 40, 50 people.
Yeah.
And you're doing it in front of thousands. Like, is there any, any tips?
Yeah.
You give us?
I mean, the number one fear in the world is public speaking.
Yeah,
so I know it's hard.
Has it always come natural to you? Do you feel like?
No.
Okay.
Funny. Right. So funny story before I tell you that.
Yeah.
My first public speaking engagement kind of thing was in college. I took a public speaking course in college. And I had a terrible first experience because the first day of class, we had to do a personal object speech. Basically, you had to go up there and you had to talk about a personal object of yours for 30 seconds. At the time, we had just left practice, so I brought my glove with me.
Okay.
So I go up in class in front of like 30 people, 40 people, and I'm shaking, bro. I'm shaking. my voice is trembling, I'm stuttering, and I have the worst first experience. Like, I felt so embarrassed at the fact that I had just that experience. So I was naturally now, that traumatized me. Like, every time I got in front of people, like, I was so scared to speak. So like over the years, like I was always scared to put myself in front of people. And then when I joined the business, I realized that the people that were making the most money were the people in front of the room. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yo, if you want to make money, if you really want to do this business, you're going to have to overcome that fear that you have. And what I started to do when I started to get put in position to speak was, I always had to meditate before. I started off meditating. I always had to do a meditation to calm myself down and see myself performing the speech successfully.
Okay.
Like, that's how I started at first. I'm like, okay, Neno, you're gonna do it. And I would visualize myself having a successful speech, and I would catch myself like, yo, and even if you fail, just laugh it off. If you mess up a word, just laugh it off. So going back to the tips, one of the things that I do is whenever you're talking to people, you want to get them to engage. Engagement always helps a lot because, for example, hey, if you guys had a great workout today, raise your hand. Or, something that can get the audience to engage always helps because it gets you to slow down a little bit. Sometimes locking in with somebody specifically also helps as well. Like, there's times when I'm speaking that I would just look at one person, and I'll just look at one person, and I'm able to like just forget about everybody else that's looking at me. And I just find this one person that I'm comfortable looking at, and it helps me like calm my nerves down and actually not focus too much on everybody else that's there. Just, it almost makes it feel like it's just one-on-one conversation that you're having with the person while there's still 30, 40,
which
50
takes
people.
you back to your sports too.
Exactly.
Because when you're pitching in front of thousands of people,
it's just me and the catcher.
All you're focused on is the catcher.
Yeah, exactly. So that helps me a lot. Another tip as well off the top that I could think of. Sometimes I just look into the abyss. Sometimes there could be a lot of people there, but I'm not looking at anybody. I'm just staring into the dark almost in a way. Like I'm looking above your head almost in a way. Like,
and the lights hit you a certain way, and then you can kind of look beyond. I can
kind of look beyond the lights, and I'm just. But nowadays, because eventually you become so confident that you kind of play around with it. You're just so confident up there. You're no longer nervous anymore. So those were tips that I did kind of like when I was coming up and I was learning my way. Now that I'm more confident, I've learned to just kind of flow with it. Also, pausing is very key, letting people receive the message after you say something powerful. Like earlier, I had one of those mic drop moments. Usually I'm on stage, I do that mic drop moment and I'll pause and I'll let everybody take it in like, sheesh, that was powerful. Yeah. And it lets you kind of smart. Yeah. It lets you kind of like regain your breath also as well, and then come back, boom, and then, kind of take it like that. So those are kind of some of the tips that is. Also, another tip is try not to move around too much. Okay. Because my mentor told me, he said, a moving message can't be relayed as powerful as if it's a message that stands still. So like a lot of people, when they talk, they move. They're always moving. And you can move, but when you're going to say something powerful, make sure that you're still. Yep. Stop. Right. So like I'm saying something, and whenever I want to say something that I want them to really hear, I'm going to stop. Boom. And I'll receive the message, and then I'll go back to moving. I'll move. Boom. And it's almost like a strategy. Yeah. While also adding the engaging in there. Everybody say I if you're with me. I, so on and so forth. So you got to know how to kind of add.
Good pastors are good at that.
Yeah. They're great at that. They're great. Rich. Of course. Rich is great at it. Yeah. He makes people laugh. He gets people to engage. Yeah. He makes people pray together. All that stuff. Yeah. So he's a great speaker.
No, he's one of the best. He's one of the best. In my opinion, he's one of the best communicators of our generation.
For sure. Yeah. I love Rich. I learned from Rich. I see how he gets everybody together and how he delivers the message. And you can see it, how he does everything as well, how he gets everybody to laugh. But when he wants to say something powerful, he gets them there. And when he does say something powerful, if you actually realize, he pauses as well. He lets people take it in, and you have that sudden pause and that silence where you're like, sheesh, that was powerful. I needed to hear that,